What is up, fine folks? Welcome back. This is episode 4 of Double Tapped. I'm Jay.
I'm Tanner.
Tanner, we are having ourselves some fine Mad Tree Lift Crisp Golden Ale.
Oh, I did not know this was a crisp golden ale,
exactly.
whatever that means.
Kolsch style. Hear some good ASMR for the people.
Yeah. All right. Oh.
Not bad.
Oh, a little double.
That was good. This is a Kolsch style ale. Mad Tree is a Cincinnati brewery.
Ooh,
so pretty
I like
local. Yeah, I had a Kolsch style before. Good light, crisp, summery, springy. And today it's actually borderline hot in our neck of the woods.
It's a little warm.
So I was like, this would be a good for the old palate. Anyway, Tanner, what you been playing?
A lot of stuff.
Yeah, I've kind of been too.
Nice.
Bouncing around.
We got a lot to talk about. So I did my 12-hour stream yesterday, celebrating 6 years of streaming, which someone told me was 24% of my life, and I had a crisis about it for a second. So yesterday I played Moonlighter, which has been a game that I've been absolutely loving again. Have I talked to you about Moonlighter
No,
before?
you haven't.
Okay, I'll just run down what I played yesterday.
Okay.
So Moonlighter, tried Knockout City.
The heck is that? Well, I guess we can get to it.
We'll get to it. And Hitman 3.
Yeah.
Along with the perpetual Rocket League that I keep playing.
Course.
But, so I'll start from the top there. Moonlighter, or we could go back and forth if you want. That's fine too. Moonlighter is an indie game that I played originally on Game Pass whenever I had like 6 months of Game Pass for free. And it is a roguelite dungeon crawler, sort of top-down, almost looks like a Link to the Past, Binding of Isaac style combat. But it is a roguelite, meaning you progress over time, not a roguelike like Binding of Isaac, which is just you always start from nothing. The cool part about it is that you run this shop. And so it's half roguelite dungeon crawler, half like shop manager. But it's not super intense. It's just you go into the dungeons, you try to get out and get as far as you can and get out with as much inventory as you can. Then you go back the next day and you sell it.
Right.
And then you can use that money to buy upgrades, to go deeper, to get more expensive stuff. And there are 4 main dungeon types, or I guess 5, but I haven't unlocked the 4th or the 5th yet. And they each have 3 floors. There's a big final boss, and then you go to the next area. Really good gameplay. Soundtrack's really nice. The art style, it's pixel art, but not... It's very well-defined pixel art. It's not like 8-bit or something. It's beautiful. That game's really, really good. So that's the first game I've been playing, and it just has its hooks in me, and I just really enjoy streaming it a lot.
You keep going. There's one thing that I've primarily been playing.
Okay.
And I'm going to touch back on the other thing when we get to my recommendations.
Okay, cool.
So
the second game, Knockout City. You may have seen a trailer for this. This is the dodgeball game. So its free beta was this weekend. I think it's ending today. And it's on everything. It's on PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, Switch. Even though it debuted at a Direct.
That was a lot of Ds.
It did. I added about 7.
Yeah, it did.
I added about 7. But it debuted at a Direct with one of the worst trailers for a game I've ever seen. Because they did it. I don't know if you remember this. I think we both watched this Direct. But
I believe so. Now I know what you're talking about.
It was the one that had like an orc. And they were like, oh, I love playing Knockout City. And then it was like some like... stealthy lady. She's like, when I play Knockout City, blah, blah. These are not characters in the game, but it felt like a mobile ad. You know what I'm talking about? Like the Clash of Clans, like, oh, my Clash or whatever. That's what it felt like, and it was terrible. It made no sense. That is not how you advertise this game. This game is fun as hell.
Because it gave off vibes of like the Splatoon or ARMS sort of style.
So it's not a battle royale. That's a common misconception that I had going in that a few people in chat were like, wait, I thought this was battle royale. It's not. It's just multiplayer. 3v3, and then there's also a 1v1 mode that's not as fun. But basically, it is dodgeball. There are different types of dodgeballs that are more powerful. So, like, you can put somebody in a cage, you can get a bomb one, whatever. But the main mechanic is either just throwing or catching the dodgeball. And it's so frenetic, pace-wise. It's so chaotic. And I was pulling off... I played for 3 hours yesterday. By hour 3... I was pulling off some insane like 3v1 things. So the game does a good job of teaching itself to you just by playing. There's a lot more nuance than I expected in a dodgeball game where your teammates can turn it. There are only so many balls on the court, which are just like these maps, but they're like city maps. They don't look like a court. But your teammates can turn into a ball. And so you can throw your teammates.
Can they then sort of guide themselves in any way?
No.
Okay.
The throws, everything is pretty lock on.
Okay.
So there's not a lot of aiming to it. But you can also power up your teammates. So you can power up your throw to do like a slow throw or like a really fast throw. If you power them up all the way, you turn them into a nuke.
Nice.
They go up into the sky and they can aim and fall down in a certain area and come down and get a KO. So it's like the first team to 10 in rounds of 3. Structurally, it's very similar to like a Fortnite or something like that, where there's daily challenges and there's like skins. I think that's the motivator of the game. Supposedly, from what I've heard, I'm not sure if this is true. I've heard it's $20 when it comes out, but on the first day it's going to be free. And I don't understand this, so I that's what I've heard. I'm not sure if that's exactly true or not, but several people, a lot of whom were coming in just for that game, were saying that. Yeah. So I guess that's a thing. I don't know.
That's kind of like you get that locked in install base right there from the jump to at least have some hype behind your game. I kind of understand it.
I would also not be shocked if this easily becomes either a Plus game or an Xbox Game Pass game or something of that ilk. The last game that I played yesterday was Hitman 3. Now, you spoke about Hitman 3. You got the platinum in it. Ad nauseum. Yes, you spoke about it, I think, on our first episode or second episode?
I believe it was early first. Doesn't matter.
We're still very early on, but still. So, as per your recommendation, I had been kind of on the lookout for Hitman 3, and you said if it goes on sale for a good price, get it. It's on sale right now for the spring sale for $45. I also had $11 left on a PlayStation gift card, so that made it like $32. For that price, I was like, I'm so in. It'll probably be around 30 for a long time. Yeah. In probably like 6 months. But I really wanted to play it. I wanted to play it while there was still some sort of an install base on Twitch. And just from your glowing recommendation, I wanted to play it. You gave it a huge recommendation, and I am still so impressed with this game.
It's really impressive.
It was like, I was kind of blown away. The first level is pretty basic. Yeah. It's a pretty basic Hitman level. It's cool.
Tall structure. It never ceases to remind me of that, having never watched a Fast and the Furious movie ever. Yeah. But remembering that trailer for Fast and Furious 7 where they drive the Lamborghini from like one tall Dubai building to another.
Right, yeah.
I always think of that. Not really relevant, but continue.
I'm going to move your mic.
Go ahead.
But yeah, so the first level is kind of whatever. It's basically just showing you the ropes of how Hitman works. Yeah. The second level is the Knives Out level. Yeah. I had no idea it was that early in the game. And so I did the Knives Out level for 2 hours. I got every clue. I talked to every person I could. So we touched on this earlier, a little bit of spoilers, I guess, but basically in all of these Hitman levels, you can do different story paths. One of the story paths for the second level is that this lady has hired a private detective to come check something out at her mansion. You can very early on knock him out, assume his identity, and then act as the detective.
Question, how did you knock him out?
So because he's in the very beginning of the level.
It's kind of hard to get him isolated.
Because there's a lot of guards. Yeah. I just shot the first 2 guards and then choked him out. I didn't want to kill him, but that was the easiest way to do it. But they're far enough away from everybody else that you can do it. But I was so dead set on playing that particular mission, and then it becomes a murder mystery. You literally...
Very much.
The only reason you're doing this is to get your target alone and reveal your findings to her. My favorite part about it is that I got alone in her room with her early on, could have killed her and ended the level, decided not to, and finish out the mystery. And
there is so incentive to... Yes. There's 2 objectives to that level. If you finish it out, you can take them both out at the end.
Yes, which I didn't know. I wasn't aware of that. That was a really nice, I don't even have to do the second part thing.
Yeah, because I kind of felt the same way, because she was like, do you want this too? And I was like, yeah, sure, I do want that.
It was a cool revelation. And then the third level is the other marquee level that you told me about, which is the
Berlin nightclub level.
Right, which is the one where you are sort of trying to find fellow hitmen among the sea of people.
It's so good.
That is maybe one of the most clever, we're going to turn the franchise on its head moments I've seen. I'm so excited to play more of it. I'm probably going to stream more of it this week. And I'm just so impressed by it. It looks good. It plays super well. The gunplay is terrible.
Exactly.
And it feels bad to pull a trigger, especially with the DualSense controllers. They've done a thing where with the haptic feedback on the L2 and R2, whenever you pull a trigger, it almost like stops a little bit. It's like you have to really commit to pulling the trigger, which makes pulling it repeatedly really hard.
Yeah.
And they just shy away so much from gunplay and solving with the sort of puzzle pieces you're given. It's so good.
Yeah, if your target is not standing completely still and you're not like just sitting there very delicately lining up your reticle to headshot them, you don't really want to shoot otherwise. That's the main way you want to shoot.
When you're here, you're family.
I just got to follow midstream or mid-recording. That's so funny. I don't even know why that played an alert. That alert box isn't even live. Okay, well, whatever.
Thanks, random person.
Yeah, that might be edited out. We'll see.
So, like you, I continue to dabble in the Rocket League.
Yep.
I have ascended to platinum rank in Rumble.
Oh, nice.
Enough.
Very nice.
I still am middling in the gold ranks in my 1v1 duels, which I'm like, every time I claw, it's so weird. I never know what to expect.
Yeah.
I'm either beating someone within an inch of their life.
Right.
It's never back and forth either. If it's a close game, it's they get up 4-0 and then I somehow come all the way back.
Nice.
Or I'm getting blown out. Like
right,
I never know what to expect.
Yeah.
But here's the weird game.
Okay.
That I've been playing a lot recently, just in the last couple days. Injustice 2.
Oh.
It was
interesting
on PlayStation Now.
Okay.
And I hadn't, taken a deep dive into PlayStation Now in a while, so I checked it out and I was like, I really dug Injustice.
Yeah, so did I.
I'm kind of in the mood for a superhero-y story.
Okay.
So I was like, I'll give it a shot. Because I'm not good at these fighting games. I've never been good at Mortal Kombat. Wasn't really good at the first Injustice.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't care. I'll play this on easy and just enjoy the ride.
Right.
And I have been enjoying the ride.
Oh,
There's so many characters.
Really?
Like some very obscure DC characters that I only like very cursorily had any knowledge of.
Oh, nice.
Captain Cold, Cheetah's in this one.
Okay, nice. Kristen Wiig.
There's just a lot. And Brainiac is the main bad guy, which is giving me some weird. I'm like, kind of odd that the Suicide Squad game from Rocksteady would turn around and reuse Brainiac so quickly after this.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So we'll see who. Something tells me Rocksteady might do it better.
Yeah,
but we'll just have to see.
The story, I will say, I really enjoyed Injustice 1, especially as just like a fun comic book story alongside all the fights. But I don't think the story is like the main draw of that game, whereas Rocksteady, I think, is going to be a little bit more focused.
Yeah, and where like in the first one, Superman's the full bore bad guy.
Yeah,
and of course there's like the alternate, like two Earths. Like there's a good Superman, there's a bad Superman, but Superman is the bad guy. From what I've played so far, I'm about halfway through the story. He's still very clearly.
Oh wow!
And I'm kind of waiting. I'm like, because Brainiac's the bad guy. I'm sort of waiting for like a Superman turn, him and Batman to sort of reconcile, but it hasn't come yet. And I'm wondering if it will, or if they're potentially just going to play it out and maybe eventually do a third game. Yeah. Who knows? Tanner, let's talk about some news. We have an obituary to discuss.
Oh no.
Mario is dead.
Oh, R.I.P. Mario.
On March 31st, Mario officially died.
Yep.
Super Mario 3D All-Stars was removed from the Nintendo Switch store. Tanner, what are your thoughts? Let's pay homage to this fallen hero.
Yes. I have a lot of thoughts. Also, I saw something that other Mario titles were being removed from separate eShops.
I was hearing something. I didn't get like a ton of detail. I'll dig into it.
Okay. All right. So I have a lot of thoughts about this. I tweeted about this when it happened, and we've known this was going to happen for a while. To be fair, Nintendo did say this is only going to be out for a limited time. Here is the end date, March 31st, and it was the end date. They didn't move on that. They were very transparent with their, at least that this was happening. That being said, I don't understand why. This seems, if there are two sort of cynical reactions I had to this. The first of which being, Nintendo loves creating scarcity. That is their favorite thing to do. They did it with the Switch release. They did it with Amiibo. They do it with all their special editions. They love scarcity. I don't really understand how it helps them other than it keeps your console at the same price for a longer time. I get that, and your games are always going to be at a higher price, and I guess that's the sort of rub. But to me, it's like, why would you not want to do the I guess PS5 couldn't even keep in stock, but why would you not want to do the thing where anyone who wants your console can get one, especially early on? That part I don't understand. But Nintendo is known for their sort of scarcity model. This just seems like the furthest extreme of this that we've seen so far.
Yeah. It seems to be the other game that they were referring to was Super Mario 35, the Battle Royale where you...
Oh, that's gone now?
Yeah, because those two games were sort of teased at the same time, and sort of... It was the Super Mario 35th anniversary?
Yes.
Yeah, it was 35th anniversary. I'm with you that this is an incredibly bizarre thing for Nintendo to do.
Yeah.
Just because... Why kill a really... And this is still, like, that's an exclusive game.
Yeah.
It's 3 games that are old and, just pretty much remasters, but this is an exclusive game that was really bolstering your first-party lineup.
It's
and
a draw to your system.
And you've omitted it completely. Like, it's very strange. Super Mario 35, like, I can see that being a kind of a one-off little gimmicky thing.
Yeah.
But that's truly, like, 3 of your tentpole games that we're re-releasing. Now you're just saying, nope, there's no way... Now, will they ever bring them back out of the vault? Almost certainly.
Yes,
but
they will.
You can never predict when that's going to be. So it's very bizarre.
Here are my 2 cynical possible whys. The first one being they wanted to experiment and they wanted to see if we tell people there's a deadline, will we increase sales in the 6 months or whatever? Because I bought it when it first came out, not because I knew I couldn't get it later, but because I wanted to play those games. But... I even thought, I was like, well, what if I wanted to buy this 6 months from now? I can't. Okay, I guess I have to buy it now. And I know a lot of people who bought it in last week thinking, well, if I can't get it any other time, I have to get it now. My other cynical thought is they don't want a price comparison point for potential Zelda remasters. Because there's been a long-standing rumor that alongside Skyward Sword, they're bringing Twilight Princess and Wind Waker to Switch. And my thought being, they want to charge $60 for each individual game. And seeing on the eShop, well, I could get all 3 Mario games for $60 combined. Why would I want to spend $180 on these Zelda games? That could be their other point. Also, as part of that other possible why, they go, oh, we're bringing the Mario games back, but now they're $60 each.
Yeah.
That is my true cynical reaction. It may be overly cynical, but Nintendo has proven time and time again they love... making money in strange ways, and I wouldn't be surprised. I know a lot of people are comparing this to Disney with the sort of like Disney Vault thing, but I think it's a different situation because Disney, especially now with the streaming service, there's always been a way you could watch their films. But especially now, like even if they do a Vault re-release that's like remastered or 4K Blu-ray, whatever, you can still go watch Sleeping Beauty if you want. Where it's like, if you, on a modern device, if you don't own an N64 and you want to play Super Mario 64 or 3DS or whichever it was on, you can't with a modern device. You cannot play 64 on a Switch right now if you don't own it already. And like that part is so frustrating to me. And like you said, it's a draw to the Switch. I'm sure there are people, maybe they're like in their 40s and they're just nostalgic for a Mario game 6 months from now. They're like, wait, I saw that Super Mario 64 was on Switch. I'll go buy a Switch to do that. And now they can't because it's not available.
I think you're right that it's probably just a testing ground for future re-releases and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I will say though, and far be it from me to predict what Nintendo is going to do.
Yeah, we are not experts.
But I would be shocked if they re-release any of those Mario games or any of the Zelda games for a full $60.
I think Skyward Sword is $60.
Well, Skyward Sword, is a full-on.
It's a remaster. Yeah.
But if they do any sort of simpler port. Or, I don't know. I could see them being more like $40 standalone titles, but
sure,
$60 would be both surprising and unsurprising.
Yeah,
so,
exactly, yeah.
Who knows? But let's talk a little bit more about games that are soon to be unavailable.
What?
PlayStation has officially announced that the PS3, PSP, and PS Vita stores,
my beloved,
will officially close down this summer.
Yeah.
R.I.P. to more than just Mario.
So this story has been circulating for a little while now.
There were rumors, yes.
But they officially announced, hey, all those stores are closing. Now, from my understanding, there will still be ways to digitally buy these games through the browser store. Is that correct? And then you can download it to your... Because you won't... So the thing is, you can't buy new games, but you will still be able to download games that you have in your library.
Yes.
So I don't know if that's true or not. But I've heard that you will still be able to buy some games through, like, I guess if it's like a cross-play PS4, PS3, and you buy it on the PS4, you could probably download it on your PS3. But this was coming at some point, I feel like.
I'm surprised it came for the Vita.
Yeah, the Vita is the surprising one because there's so many games. Because the PS4 is obviously still doing well and still alive, and there's so many games that are PS4 Vita cross-buy.
Yeah.
And it being their last sort of handheld that they made. I guess they just weren't seeing numbers that were driving Vita sales.
Yeah, it's purely a business decision. Like, it has to be.
Yeah, and I don't know how expensive it is to maintain the store. I'm sure you have to employ people to do it and you know, separate certifications for developers and things like that. And you don't get the money from developers applying to cert and stuff like that. So I'm sure there is a money loss situation there. The PS3 one's not surprising to me. That PS3 interface was awful as a storefront anyway. My curiosity now almost comes from, will there be an insane sale on PS3, PSP, and Vita games?
That would be interesting.
Because I don't know why they wouldn't do that. Like, if you're a developer, because I don't know exactly how, like, sales are. I don't know if Sony comes to certain developers or publishers and saying, like, hey, we're doing a sale in the spring. Do you want to be on it? Do you want to set your prices? Or if it's more the developer says, hey, next week, set my game to this price. Yeah. I'm sure it's more the former, but, you know, why would you not set your game to $1 or something on PS3? If you're never going to be able to make money from it again on PS3, why not?
It's a doorbusters, like, furniture store sale.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everything must go.
I already have my eye on, I'm like, because there are a few games that are, you know, people have mentioned will be inaccessible via any other method if you don't buy them right now. One of them is Infamous Festival of Blood. The Infamous 2 DLC. Now, am I going to go pony up? However, surely that can't be. I mean, maybe $20 at the max.
Yeah, $19.99 was what I was thinking.
I'm not going to spend $20 on Infamous 2 DLC right now. No. However, there is one thing that I have my eye on. I almost broke out my OG PS3 that I have sitting under my TV the other night to go figure out and buy this.
Okay.
And that is, and we'll talk more about this later, but did you know that there is a Dragon Ball Z Budokai remastered trilogy on the PS3?
No, I didn't.
It says remastered trilogy, and yet it's only 1 and 3. They skipped 2 for some reason.
That's bizarre.
I don't know why, but I'm thinking long and hard about going and buying it.
I mean, if you ever think of go back and play it.
If there's no other way to get it, I'm like, I'm not going to go shell out the $40-something someone's going to charge me on like eBay for like a used copy of it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing too. I wonder if PS3 games will go up in value now.
Or will they start folding more and more of them into like PS Now and that sort of thing? You have to assume that some level of that is coming.
Yeah. I will say though, like my heart breaks for games like Journey, which I'm sure has had a physical release now at this point, but like this sort of PS3 was really the start, and especially with Vita too. The fact the PSP story isn't surprising to me, and like
I'm surprised that one was still alive to begin with.
Same here, but it must have just been folded into other stuff. But PS3 and Vita specifically were like the rise of sort of the downloadable indies. That was the time period, right? I mean, Xbox Live was the reason that started happening, but you know, that was sort of the rise of downloadable games as a whole. So this is really the first stone to fall in that regard, where now we can't get to some of those games, your journeys, even like Walking Dead Season 1 and just things like that aren't, you know, didn't get a full release. I am sad for people who won't get to try those out.
Yeah, and I'm sad because the Vita was definitely an opportunity for very small developers to publish a game that was, you know, it was sort of a low risk, low reward scenario where like PlayStation was like, yeah, we'll have your game, publish it on just Vita. You know, places like that. It was a good opportunity for some publicity for studios that might not have otherwise gotten it anywhere else.
I will say, if you own a Vita and you don't own the game Severed, it's a Drinkbox game. It's fantastic, and I think it's playable now on other devices like Switch and iOS, but in the PlayStation ecosystem, it's only available on Vita because it has a touch interface. Mm-hmm. Pick it up. Severed's awesome. And also, one of the best games in the Vita.
If you don't have a Vita, and obviously you need to get your hands on one right now, I'll sell you mine for like $200. So I would consider this a pretty big L for Sony.
Yeah.
A lot of confusion.
Yeah,
you know?
For sure.
Let's talk about another big L for Sony.
Oh, no.
Tanner, this blew me away.
Okay.
And I know it kind of blew you away, too. MLB The Show.
Oh, yeah.
Is coming to Xbox Game Pass. What?
Yeah, this is wild. So, if you don't know,
it's incredible.
MLB The Show has a long time is made by Sony San Diego.
Yes.
Because Santa Monica's got a.
I always get them confused too.
Sony San Diego. I can see the little SD logo. And it is the only premier MLB game out there. And for a long time, it has been PlayStation exclusive. I think all of last generation and some of the generation before, it was the marquee MLB game. And actually drives more PlayStation sales than you might think.
Definitely.
Because there are people who I just want to play Madden and the MLB game. I'm going to get a PlayStation. For the first time in forever, I think it was 20 years or something, MLB The Show was announced that it was coming to Xbox, still published by Sony. So there's going to be an Xbox case of MLB The Show with a PlayStation logo on it. They have also now shown in the trailer. Have you seen this?
No.
There's a trailer out for MLB The Show for being on Xbox. And the first part of it is the Xbox whoom, and then it's the PlayStation logo.
Studios, yeah.
It's so weird. So PlayStation's still publishing it, but they're bringing it to Microsoft, bringing it to Xbox. But now it was recently announced that day one, MLB The Show is going to be on Game Pass. And we have never gotten, as PlayStation players, we have never gotten the show day one for free.
No.
Not for free. I know Game Pass is a different service, but it's not coming to the PlayStation equivalent Now service.
Yeah, and it's effectively for free. If you own a Series X, if you're one of the early adopters of that, I would be shocked if you were not a subscriber to Game Pass.
Yeah, I would too. And so, yeah, it's I'm excited for Xbox gamers that they get to finally try out this series and they don't even have to pay for it. That's a genius move on Xbox's part.
Yeah.
And I would be really curious as to how this deal even came about.
See, that was what I was wondering. Do you think that it was a necessity that Sony knew this was going to happen? Or do you think that they could have agreed to publish it on Xbox and Xbox could have later made the decision to put it on Game Pass?
I have to imagine that was part of the deal, right? I would think maybe, I know nothing about how this stuff happens, but as a spitball idea, Xbox probably said, well, because the rumor was that MLB was the driving force in putting it on Xbox, right? Because they have always heard from their Xbox fans, yes, because this is the only MLB licensed game. They've heard from their marquee one. I know there's some other ones, but they've heard from their Xbox fans for a long time, please bring a game to there. So MLB, from what I've heard, was maybe thinking maybe we don't go with PlayStation anymore. Maybe we go with a different studio. But San Diego is built to be the show's studio.
Yeah, they churn those things out like crazy.
And they're always really well received, too. I know a lot of people, our buddy Skinny included, who adore that game series.
800 hours roughly playing that game last year he did.
Jeez. And a lot of people say it is the best sports game if you play all of them. So that's a testament to how good those games are. But I've kind of lost the original point. Oh, was it Microsoft or was it Sony? Yeah. I think Xbox probably said, okay, here's our money on the table for Game Pass. And Sony thought, yeah, why not? We're getting all this extra revenue in. We're going to get more revenue when people buy it on Xbox.
There's definitely still a revenue sharing thing happening there. So
yeah, so it's just interesting for Sony not to go. I guess they would just be too afraid of losing all the money on it because they're in a place where they want to offer money to games to come to Now, as opposed to doing that with their own internal games. And so it just shows how differently Xbox and PlayStation are approaching their titles, right? Where Xbox just wants you to get an Xbox, just wants you to be in the ecosystem. And now PlayStation is well, now you're in the ecosystem. We don't need to give this to you for free. Enough people will still buy it on PlayStation. We'll be fine. So it's really interesting and a big win for Microsoft, but like you said, a big loss for Sony as well.
Yeah, you have to wonder just what percentage of that casual audience is just, it's another notch in the belt of Xbox, and they say, oh, I'll get this, and then I'll try Halo, and I'll try this. And it's that slow burn that Xbox is really, they full on committed to it, and kudos to them.
I appreciate it, yeah.
I still think PlayStation 5 is probably going to win this generation.
Yeah, I think so too. We'll see.
But the next, I'm already, suspicious about the outlook going forward for PlayStation versus Xbox. So we'll see how that all plays out.
We'll keep an eye on it.
The last news story that I've got for you.
Okay.
The rumored and effectively was confirmed CyberPunk 2077 multiplayer mode has been canceled.
Oh.
Yeah. Completely unsurprising.
Yeah.
Given the
state of the game.
Continued state of the game.
Yes.
It's so weird. I was so I don't want to say I was so in.
Yeah.
But I was almost so in.
I was pretty in.
I was ready to buy it.
Yeah.
And then it just decided to be broken.
Yes.
I don't know what to make of this game. I've never seen a game quite like this, where it gets completely taken off the PlayStation Store, which is virtually unprecedented.
Yeah.
For a game of this magnitude.
Yeah. Is it still off the store?
Still off the store. No dates for it to return. I mean, the tentative date for it to have the full-on next generation upgrade was supposed to be, I think, like summer of this year. Literally no chance of that happening.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I'm continually in awe of the state of this game.
As am I. I don't know anything about the multiplayer expansion, but just as a platform to talk about this game, because we've never talked about it on the podcast before, I pre-ordered this game, and I was even still... there was enough of a curiosity with me. I knew it was bad. I'd heard mostly it was bad on older consoles. I had pre-ordered it for PC because I knew I was building a new PC and I wanted like a tentpole game to run there. And it was still in the morbid curiosity phase of Twitch, where it was like people were just watching this game because it's silly. So I was like, I'll try it. Went to scratch off my scratch code and it disintegrated and I couldn't read some of the letters. So if that's not the best zeitgeist of what Cyberpunk has been, I refunded it through Amazon. But so I've never played the game. I have a few close friends who have played it. One of which, my buddy Bree, she gave me a full review of it. And basically, I've heard it's a really good game once you can get past all the bugs, which is the common narrative, right?
Yeah.
That there's cool characters, there's cool story moments, the combat's pretty fun. But I will say most of the people that I know are playing it on PC. Mm-hmm. And I saw an article last week, 2 weeks ago, that said this game, after the most recent update, because they did a big update a couple of weeks ago, still has hundreds of bugs. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, how defeating that must be for the studio itself, right? Like how... just for all the developers to go like, all right, we knocked it down from 150 to 130. Good job, everybody. Let's do the next 2 months of the next 10 bugs. It's like I feel sorry in a way for CD Projekt. I don't feel sorry for the project managers and the people who
sort of accelerated the process.
Sure, obviously pushed this out before it was ready, but I do feel I do feel bad for the everyday developers working on this game, because it's got to be so rough to see, a certain section of your game that you love, and then it's just cast all asunder by everything else around it.
And I also feel bad for them a little bit, because the fervor around this game was not necessarily their fault.
No.
People took the hype of this game and just ran with it like crazy.
Yeah.
And, there were, the tweets that became memes of like people, getting into some really granular aspects of like the character creation and the developers are like, you need to roll it back there a little, son. Like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
People definitely took this game to be like the next generation of RPGs that it just truly was never going to be.
No, I don't think so.
But you also, as a studio, can in good faith release a game, at least on the last gen consoles, that was genuinely in no state to be released and was completely broken and looked awful.
Right.
So yeah, it's partially on them. It's partially on people who took the hype way too seriously.
Sure.
But it's a lot on the stakeholders and the shareholders who pushed it way too fast.
Yes, agreed. I'm like you. I'm ever fascinated by this game. I will say though, we kind of saw it goes to show you how hype can be a negative thing. Mm-hmm. And this almost happened, and it did happen in a regard with like The Last of Us 2, right? There was a certain subsect of the audience, which I'm sure Cyberpunk players would say the same thing. There's a certain subsect of the fan base that was like saying way too lofty stuff, right? Like, this is going to be the greatest game of all time, and like they were saying such finite things before anyone had ever played it.
Yeah.
And I hope my major hope for this is for those types of people. Even with The Last of Us 2, I was very consistent in talking about it and leading up to it. I was just like, I just hope it's good. That was my only hope. Like, as long as it's good, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to be like, this is going to be better than the first one or anything, because you don't know. I hope for the people who were I'm sorry that people were disappointed by this game, and a lot of people were, but I hope this is a reset of expectations of games for certain fans that do overhype things to a point where they could never meet those standards.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's tough too, because like, okay, The Last of Us 2 is an example where it was pretty obvious that the game was going to be good is a subjective term in the sense that the game was going to come out polished,
well made. Yeah,
nit and pick the story up and down if you really want to. I choose not to nitpick it as much as a lot of people do.
Yeah, nor do I.
But then you look at, CD Projekt Red, last big game, The Witcher 3, one of the most lauded games of the last generation. So you're expecting still some level of at least technical consistency that just wasn't there. But, it was a true shift for that studio. Whereas, The Last of Us was, we're making another third-person stealth action game that, this isn't that crazy of a leap. Whereas Cyberpunk was a risk for CD Projekt Red.
And I think to your point, with Naughty Dog, I definitely think there was less of an expectation. Not that there wasn't a huge expectation, but if we're ranking them, there was less of an expectation on Last of Us 2 than there was Cyberpunk.
Sure.
Simply because Naughty Dog has reached, over time, this status of very few developers. I think Rockstar's at this point, very few others are, where they've been so consistently at least really good games-wise that people just expected them to maintain that level. Mm-hmm. With CD Projekt Red, they go from The Witcher 2, which is like an okay whatever RPG, to Witcher 3, which is like this game of the year. People think it's the greatest RPG of that generation, all that kind of stuff. So people went, okay, if you went from Witcher 2 to this and did that much, what if you do that much again?
Yeah, the exponential climb they were expecting was not there. And that's
such a terrible expectation to put on anybody, especially when, like you said, they're completely changing their gameplay mechanics and the visuals and time period and all that kind of stuff. It is easy to overhype things. And I don't want it to sound like I don't want people to get excited about things. We just did a podcast about our most hype potential moments. We love hype, but overhyping can be dangerous for everyone involved.
Definitely. But Cyberpunk, Tanner, that's set so far in the future.
Have you had a segue
no, that definitely just
every
came
topic?
to me.
Nice.
Oh, well, I try.
Yeah, I like it.
But sometimes, as people say, to go forward, you gotta go back. This is going to be a very informal conversation, and we've been teasing it, on and off for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And the sort of framework that I wanted to discuss this around was, were the games we played as kids actually good?
Were you just miming out the title?
Yeah.
Nice.
And so we're just going to hash through. Now, I made this point to Tanner. We're not going to be talking about your Super Mario 64s.
Right.
Any of these crazy lauded games. I made note of the Tony Hawk games. We talk a lot about Tony Hawk. I love Tony Hawk.
Yeah.
Lots of people love Tony Hawk.
Right.
We wanted some games that had at least some unique attachment to us as individuals.
Right. Or a little bit more niche. Perhaps a game that you could bring up and not everybody goes like, oh yeah, I love those games.
Yeah. Or a game that, I think one example of mine specifically is a game that a lot of people know, but a lot of people don't like, that I did.
Okay, right.
And whether I'm either going to try to prove them wrong or acknowledge that they're right, but say that I love it anyway.
Right.
So it's that kind of setup. And we're just going to go back and forth.
Yeah,
hash it out. We've got beers, we got lists.
Yeah, we got time. Jay, go ahead.
I'm going to save the first one here for the end because obviously I'm going to talk to death a series of games that, if you know me at all by now, you probably know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah.
But I'm going to start with the game that I just alluded to.
Okay.
Which is Sonic Adventure 2. Sonic Adventure 2 is an enigma. I love it.
Yeah.
But it's so bad sometimes.
Okay. Explain.
So, Tanner, I just want you, because we're talking a little bit about this game before we came in here, and the question that you asked, which I think is a wonderful question, is when you said you were watching the Sonic games, and you see, this very fast, frenetic, all this stuff going on, and you're like, okay, but are you actually what do you actually do?
How much do you contribute to this game? Because I've played, I'm sure as a kid, I went over to a kid's house and they had Sonic or something, but just watching the gameplay, everything looks so on rails that's what do you do here? What
and
is
there are plenty of
player
sequences
doing?
where you hit the little star bouncy things, whatever those, I don't even know what the heck to call those.
Those are the ones
but
that
you're bam, 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 and you bounce 8 times and it's 10 seconds long, where you're just, at that point, you're not controlling anything.
Okay.
But the best shining example of when that game is fun, and some of the examples of when it's not, are all in the first beautifully, strange level, which is Escape from the City.
Rolling around at the speed
and one of the greatest
sound.
songs in the history of video games.
Yeah, you proclaimed this was a top 10 video game song all time.
It might be personally to me. And it speaks both to my game sensibilities and my music sensibilities, for sure.
Sure.
But you're Sonic the freaking Hedgehog. And you jump out of a helicopter on a makeshift snowboard. And this pop punk starts playing.
Yeah.
And you're just riding down. You're going fast, but you're not really controlling your speed. It's all like your speed is consistent.
It's like
but
an
you're just trying to hit ramps, do tricks, collect the rings, and you're just going. And it's just fun. You're just vibing.
Just vibing.
But then,
you
get off the board for a second.
Yeah.
And you go into these little sequences where there are these weird flying robots, and I don't know where they came from. And you're doing you're no longer going fast.
All right.
And anytime, if it's a Sonic game, you want to be going fast.
Sure, yeah, that's the whole point.
And now you're just walking around at the speed of walking, not at the speed of sound.
Oh, not sound. Oh, okay.
And you do these little moves where all you do is you jump and you hit a button and it auto tracks you to hit these enemies.
Okay.
And you just kill them instantly. There's no combat that's just bam, bam. And you're just walking around doing this, collecting the rings.
Sounds like a blast.
They're the chows, these are the stupidest. I don't know why the chows are there. The Chow Garden, stupid.
Okay, so I have to say very quickly, the only thing that I know about this game specifically is I had a first cousin who would do the Chow Garden every day. I would he almost did a
actually
spit,
looked after the chows. That's awesome.
He almost did a spit take. I would go over to their house sometimes. They lived on the mountain in our hometown.
Yeah.
So they had very little internet. It was just just going back into the dark ages. That's not true, but they play. He would before we would play Smash or whatever. He'd be like, "Wait, I gotta check my Chow Garden real quick," and he would literally just show me the Chow Garden and this is what my update's doing. It's cool. Yeah, I don't know what these are.
To this day, I still don't really understand the Chow Garden. Other than you just would find these chows.
You could breed them and shit.
You really could. Yeah, you could actually. But, that's another. Okay, maybe this game is 3/4 bad and maybe 1/4 good. But the 1/4 is really awesome.
Love that 1/4.
But the 1/4, you're Sonic or you're one of my personal favorite characters, Shadow.
Yeah. Who I said, who's that?
Yeah.
When he appeared. So
he's the apex life form.
Randy Orton? Just to preface, Jay and I were sort of refamiliarizing ourselves with some of these IP that we haven't seen in years.
Yeah.
So we were just watching little video clips and then Shadow popped up and I was like, who the fuck's that?
So this is one of those games that I acknowledge is tough to critically defend. But the style and the time that it came out and the age that I was, it holds a very special place in my heart. But it's one of those games that I will acknowledge is bad lots of the time.
Okay.
But all that to say, you could make a really fun Sonic game if you just streamlined it completely. And I was never into the 2D Sonics. I was a little too old for 2D Sonic. I dipped my toes into Sonic Mania, and I appreciate it. And that's a lot more of if you could just 3D-ize that, where it's your momentum is consistent. It's more the opening to City Escape where you're constantly just moving. Just make those levels bigger.
Yeah.
There's more downhill races. You could do fun mini games that are just consistently frenetic fast. There's potential. They just need to stop. I don't know, because there's been so many bad Sonic games.
Sonic 06
they need to stop getting weird
one.
and stay fast. That's it.
There you go. I don't have anything to add because I've never played a Sonic game, but
Sonic Adventure 1 also fun. Shout out to the Dreamcast.
Nice. Shout out. A controller or a system I've never seen in person. Have no idea how a Dreamcast controller feels. It looks terrible.
It does. It was odd.
So my first game is a game Jay had never heard of. I doubt many people listening to this have ever heard of it. It's called Mercury Meltdown, specifically Mercury Meltdown Remix. Oh, we should say, because I would have had some early PS3 generation stuff, we limit ourselves to PS2 and earlier, simply because we want sort of that, are we looking back on them with rose-tinted glasses, or is it more just, is it actually a good game? So Mercury Meltdown, my story with this game, and part of the fun of this is just going to be telling our stories in our relation to the game. I had a buddy growing up. It was not uncommon for us to go to if my parents were going to the movie rental store, which no longer exists because those don't exist anymore. But they also had video game rentals, and so we would just look around at the PS2 rentals and they had a deal that was like, rent 2 movies, get a third free, but they would throw the game in so we could just rent a free game. And multiple times we rented this game called Mercury Meltdown Remix. Now, it's hard to describe, I think. I showed Jay very briefly a little bit of what the gameplay looks like. You play as this little blob of mercury. You're just like this little silver blob, and I think a lot of the attraction to it as a kid was just it was a very colorful art style. The physics were really cool for PS2 era, like the mercury would sort of drip off the side. But basically, you play as this little blob of mercury, and there are like levels that almost look like Super Monkey Ball. They're kind of, you control the stage, you move this little mercury around, you're trying not to knock him off the stage, you're trying to get as much of a percentage to the end as you can. But eventually, they start introducing different colors you can turn yourselves into. I think in later games, they introduce different elements. But basically, it becomes more of a puzzle game than it is like a monkey ball trying to just get to the end game.
I figured it out.
What?
I knew it reminded me of another game. This is the way you sell, or you wouldn't sell this game to many people if you said it this way, but this is how you could pitch it. It's Super Monkey Ball meets Death Squared.
Oh, right, the newer game, yeah.
At least that little clip you showed me earlier reminded me a lot of Death Squared.
Yeah, is sort of Death Squared, yeah. Watching it back now, it plays, and I think this is probably going to be true for a lot of the things we're going to talk about. It looks like it plays a lot clunkier than you remember.
Yeah,
it looks slow and plodding. Monkey Ball, you and I recently just booted that up and played like 30 minutes of it the other day. Monkey Ball still plays so well. It's fast, and it's just like, that Hotline Miami, you die, you go again, you die, you go again kind of thing. With Mercury Meltdown, I'm sure there was a bit of that, but everything was so deliberate, and because it was more puzzle focused than it was just like get to the end focused, I'm sure that's not a great game anymore. I even had a PS3 version of it. I think it was like a free game at some point, and it was better. It was more polished, but that concept just doesn't sound fun to me anymore. And I think had I not been a kid, had it not had like a really bright, zany cover, we never would have given it a shot. And I just don't think that game is very good.
Upon looking at it, I was immediately like, this looks awful.
Yeah.
But then, once I saw that it was these sort of like tabletop, balance, momentum style, like you're moving the mercury based on I assume it's like the motion controls on like the old controllers or whatever. Or was it
It was sticks.
Oh, okay.
It was like Monkey Ball.
It seems like that would be better if it were the, actual motion controls.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, now that I know it was sticks, never mind. Disregard everything I'm about to say. It is awful.
It was a fun game as a kid, but I don't think it's great.
Now, here's a game that I desperately would like another of.
Okay.
And this is a game that is good and is revered as good, but it is overshadowed by the other first-party mascots of Nintendo.
Okay.
This game, Kirby. Nightmare in Dreamland.
Oh.
Do you remember this game?
Not specifically, but I played Kingdom of the Crystal Shard.
This to me is the quintessential Kirby game.
Okay, I'm going to look it up.
Okay. Talk about it. So it's just your very classic, 2D full-on platformer, variety of enemies for Kirby to just suck on up, plenty of powers. I believe this was one of the first games that sort of leaned into the sort of astral, like, I don't remember if you fight Meta Knight in this game, but I'm pretty sure Meta Knight makes a cameo in this game.
Gotcha. Okay, so it plays like the older Kirby's.
Yeah,
just
this is like
Game
the
Boy
classical
Advance.
Kirby. This is not like the newer, like weird spin-off versions of Kirby.
Right.
And I don't have too much to say about it other than, to me, when I was a kid, based on the games that I had seen, I would have much rather played the likes of Kirby, Nightmare in Dreamland than most of the Mario games.
Oh, wow.
Any of the Zelda games as a kid.
Right, like as a little kid.
Yeah. I just thought this game was like easy enough, but accessible enough and fun with the gimmick of obviously Kirby being able to suck up, steal people's powers. I loved that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, it holds a special place in my heart because I did dig Mario, but I loved Kirby. I really did. And I almost gave a shout out to Kirby's Air Eye, but I'm like, to me, that's another one of those things I'm like, this is not Kirby to me.
Right.
It's a fun,
it's a tie-in.
Gimmicky of Kirby, but this is Kirby.
Yeah. I played, I think it was called Kingdom of the Crystal Shard, the N64 one, which is, it plays like the games you've described, but just in 3D. Similar, not nearly as transformative as Super Mario 64, but similar thing where you're taking the same, and honestly, Ocarina from Link to the Past. I don't know why that doesn't get brought up more, but it's obviously just them adapting it to a 3D style, and I love that game as a kid.
Yeah.
There's something so fun and kind of missed. I know they did more new Switch style or Switch based Kirby games, but I kind of miss the creativity of, if you combine this guy's power with this guy's power, then I can do this. And like as a kid, not looking up stuff on the internet immediately or having a Twitch chat to talk to or something, just sort of what do I think this is going to be? If I combine fire and air, what am I going to turn into? And then it's like, whoa, okay, cool. So I think there is a very kiddish, wonderful quality to those games.
Yeah.
And I would like to see more of them.
Just as a little side note, has there ever been a less intimidating enemy in any video game than the little like basic Kirby enemy that's just like very cute face? He's got like brown skin, but it's probably like fur, but then the face is lighter colored. It's just very cute. Like, this is not an enemy. You can suck him up and he doesn't even do anything. You just swallow him.
Yeah.
I love Kirby. Bring him back.
All right. My next one, I have sort of grouped 4 games into one here. Not that they're necessarily, well, they have a connective tissue, but just not to talk about all of them in general. And all of them are good. But Peggle, Bejeweled, Zuma, and Plants vs. Zombies.
What was that third one?
Zuma?
What is that?
Okay, so that's the one everybody responds like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So these are all 4 PopCap games, a studio I love and is owned by EA now and is not putting out as much games as they should. So for a little bit, there was like this golden era of PopCap games where early PC game, well, not early in the PC's lifetime, but in my lifetime, some of the first PC games I remember playing, they were sort of smaller experiences, kind of what would and why they lend themselves so well to like apps. It's kind of what apps were at, like more mobile game focused stuff where it's like, here's this one concept and we're going to do this a bunch of times, a bunch of different ways, but they're mainly puzzles. So Peggle, obviously we both sung the praises of that game a lot already. Bejeweled, if you've played Candy Crush, that is a carbon copy of Bejeweled. I don't know why PopCap didn't sue them. Plants vs. Zombies is a game, it's kind of like a tower defense game, I guess, but you're setting up plants, zombies are attacking your garden, and you have to stop them from getting into your house. It's a very, very fun game, a game I come back to a lot. I come back to all these games a lot. And then Zuma is, I think this is, for Jay's sake, I'm just going to show him a picture. But I think this is the best way to show this would just be to show you what this looks like. So Zuma...
Okay, not the way I thought it was spelled.
Zuma is you have this little frog character in the middle of your screen, and he has like a ball that comes out of his mouth. Going around you in a spiral is a bunch of different multicolored balls, and the idea is that you combine 3 of them. You don't want all the balls to get to the hole. If they get to the hole, you die. Okay,
I've played games of this ilk before.
So that's Zuma, and they're all pretty similar in the way they pace through themselves.
I don't know if you'll know this.
Okay.
Did PopCap's the idea for Zuma, that sort of shoot the ball, hit the matching likes and eliminate them, was that the first game of that genre?
I have no idea.
If so, who are these people at PopCap and why are they so creative?
They also made a game called Chuzzle, which was pretty cool.
Chuzzle, Peggle, Zuma,
Bejeweled. They made a ton of... PopCap maybe got away with being so creative because they made a ton of games that were shit. So like they kind of were a throw something at the wall and see if it sticks kind of company. Not shit, but like a Wizard's Pin. I own all of them because they did a Steam sale. A Wizard's Pin was actually kind of cool, but there were some of those games like Pizza Mania, and they just did some weird shit. But,
sounds awesome.
It does. But shout out to PopCap. I love those games. I think they were critically acclaimed then. I think probably if you were going to go back and play one of them now, if we're talking the original, not any of the sequels, either Peggle or Plants vs. Zombies would hold up best, I think. Bejeweled has had better versions made. I mean, Peggle 2 I think is better than Peggle 1. But Plants vs. Zombies, the one frustrating thing about what Plants vs. Zombies has become, similar to what you're talking about Kirby, like Plants vs. Zombies has become the Garden Warfare brand, right? Yeah. Where it's like, oh, cartoony shooter, kids can play it. It's defend all these zombies. I want a true Plants vs. Zombies game again because they play completely differently. The only connective tissue there is just these plant types and these zombie types.
Yeah.
I know that Garden Warfare probably makes them a lot more money, but I'm gonna bang the drum for PopCap as long as I can until EA inevitably closes them. So I hope they live a long life, and I love PopCap.
I mean, at least let them go off and do their own thing before you just shutter the doors.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna lump a few games together here because they're sports games.
Okay.
And we're just gonna hit them all quickly.
All right.
The first one, the one that we watched a little bit out there, the one that is not actually good, was MLB Slugfest. I played 06. We watched little clips from 03, and basically these were just crappy MLB, like the actual licensed EA MLB sort of clones.
Yeah.
But they had the real licenses. It was the real teams. It was everything. The only twist was that it was slightly more arcadey, faster,
Yeah.
You could pitch the balls and they would do weird things or whatever. But the main shtick was, like, let's say you were the batter and you just got hit in the head by a pitch. You could go and just beat the living daylights out of the pitcher.
Yeah.
But what we learned earlier was that even though I felt like I remembered seeing the actual violence of this game.
And maybe it was in an earlier version or something.
They just completely cut away from the fight. Yeah. Had like the third baseman being like, ooh,
Yeah.
Like, these games were clearly not very good.
Right.
I really dug like some of the MLB games as a kid, but this was the one that stuck out in my mind and the one that I was like, okay, I'll stick to normal sports games unless you're like NBA Street, like some of the legit, spin-offs.
To throw one in here, that was made by Midway, who also made NFL Blitz, which is on my list, and I'll just talk about it briefly now. Very similar sort of case. NFL Blitz, real licensed NFL game, sort of the precursor for like an NFL Street, which I think took all the concepts and made it better. It was a little bit, so when we watched the Slugfest stuff, it really just looked like a regular baseball game, but you could hit people.
Yeah.
NFL Blitz had a little bit more arcadiness to it, but not a lot. Like the animations were a little bit more arcadey, like when they would catch a ball. You could go leg drop some people. I remember that specifically. But yeah, it was basically just a hardcore version of NFL. And I liked that game a lot as a kid. We had it for N64. And playing it now in like an arcade, like in the barcade we go to, there's an arcade machine there that has NFL Blitz. It's still really fun, but it's not a scratch on the Maddens of that era. And I appreciate them for trying something else, but they clearly didn't take it far enough into the something else to really make it something unique.
Yeah. But see, that's a good segue into the games that we've also sung the praises of a little bit, which are the mid of the aughts of the 2000s Tiger Woods PGA Tour games.
Yeah.
I specifically put the range of 04 to 06 because these games took the classic, pretty much full-on simulation style of these games.
Yeah.
The gameplay was not arcadey, but the stuff around it, the dressing of it, if you will, was arcadey. Whereas like in 2004, you don't expect a simulation golf game. Anyone who's a fan of golf out there, the Masters is coming up this week. You see a Masters commercial on TV. It's the soft piano. Like, it's peaceful, it's calm, it's regal. And this game was introed. Like Tiger Woods PGA Tour 2004, the intro was Party Up by DMX. And that should tell you all you need to know, especially when it's cutting from these really zany, sumo wrestler and, cartoonishly Irish man.
Right.
Like, the characters were hilarious. The music and the announcers were fun, but it kept the core precision of the Tiger Woods gameplay that I really loved.
Yeah.
So all respect to those games. PGA Tour is coming back. EA's bringing the PGA Tour license back to compete with the 2K. We're gonna have two warring golf franchises, and I can't wait.
It's a golf renaissance, Jay. You're so excited.
What a time to be alive.
And it's funny because Tiger Woods is gonna be with the 2K one now.
No, he's in.
Oh, he's with the EA one. Okay, he's back. I thought they swapped for some reason. So quick aside.
Okay.
Someone was telling me. The way you said okay, that was great. Someone was telling me recently that there is a I think in 2K's golf game there is a battle royale mode where it's like a race to the pin kind of thing.
I have 2K's golf game.
Okay,
I don't.
Maybe they're bringing it there or something. I don't know. Or maybe
there is sort of a racing. I don't know to what degree, like how many players are in like a single thing, but there you can do like maybe like a 4 or 5 person where it's more of a race.
Interesting.
And I don't know if you're like penalized if you can do like, even if you got into the hole in 5 strokes but faster than someone else did it in 4.
Right.
I don't know if that counts against you.
Yeah,
or how that works
I was wondering
exactly.
that too.
But yeah, that is a mode for sure.
Gotcha. Okay.
What is your next pick?
My next game. Sorry, I was so enamored.
You were so caught up. Golf is just a lovely game.
Yeah, I sent Jay.
Greatest game ever played. Movie with Shia LaBeouf.
That's understood. Sorry, that was a very confusing sentence to decipher in my head. You said greatest game ever played, movie with Shia LaBeouf, and I was like, "There's a game called Movie and Shia LaBeouf's in it." So yeah, I sent Jay just the opening of Tiger Woods 05, which was the one I played a lot of, and I was very nostalgic for it because it's just so funny to see like Arnold Palmer, and then this guy who has a pool cue like spinning it around, and then like Jack, and then there's a guy with just like a Wild West gun, and it's hilarious.
I'm so happy to hear Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer shouted out on this podcast.
Not by you.
No.
All right. So next up, I have a game that I actually saw a video in the recommends that was why this game was so good. So I felt sort of solidified in my take that Return to Castle Wolfenstein was an awesome game. So this was my first real foray into a shooter, I think. My dad always played PC games growing up, and you're going to see the influence, I guess, with PopCap you already have. But a lot of my forays into sort of more adult games was through PC. And I remember sort of the Medal of Honor era, pre-Call of Duty. I remember like Quake and Unreal Tournament specifically. But the one that I remember the most of is Return to Castle Wolfenstein. It's actually a game that I did a video for on YouTube, and in retrospect, because I am so nostalgic for this game. But the online specifically, which people are apparently still playing, I saw a video on YouTube that said Return to Castle Wolfenstein Online 2020. So I don't know if there's still lobbies out there for that. For that game, but that was fascinating. But this game is just, I think it was a little bit ahead of its time with sort of the way the multiplayer worked, specifically like you had classes, and there was like a medic who could go around and revive people who were downed, and it was the first game I really remember having sort of legitimate classes. One of the first games I remember having like a voice chat option. I can't remember if that was built into the game or if that was on like a Ventrilo, if you're old enough to know what that is, but just the idea of having this online shooter in sort of a more realistic, not that Wolfenstein is uber realistic, but more
so than Doom,
right? In this semi-realistic setting, and just the story was really fun. It knows when to be silly and it knows when to be serious, and even sometimes, like the older Hitman games, when it's taking itself serious, it is silly. But yeah, I'm very fond of this game. The shooting, as someone who played it recently-ish, holds up pretty well. A lot of times when you go back and play some of these older shooters, they feel so slow. But there were a lot of sensitivity adjustments you could make. There was a lot of plotting, and like enemies dropped their guns that you could pick up. I remember that was a big thing, and it was just really cool. I like that game a lot.
Tanner, what I'm realizing as I look at some of these games that I was playing was that I must have just grown up, well, you too, in one of the golden eras for American exported to America anime. Because as we've discussed at length, and as I said, it was one of my hype announcements, one of my franchises that is very beloved to me is Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah. And
one of the games, prior to Yu-Gi-Oh! Hang on, I got to get the full title right. Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist, the one I just platinumed. It's a stupid long title for the one I played on PS4.
Legacy of the Duelist?
Legacy of the Duelist Link Evolution.
I know it's Link something.
But the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Game that was really great that I loved was Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Academy. You remember Duel Academy?
I do. I think that was the game I played.
Duel Academy was great because it was set in the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, the sequel series to the original Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah.
You start as Jaden. Well, no, in this game you were just you. But all of the GX characters sort of made appearances. And the sort of format of Duel Academy, both the game and GX as a show, was you're on this island. There are 3 levels to this Duel Academy. There's Slifer Red, named after Slifer the Sky Dragon. Raw Yellow, named after the winged dragon of Ra. And Obelisk Blue, named after Obelisk the Tormentor, which was my favorite.
Gotcha.
Not just because it was the highest rank at Duel Academy, but because Kaiba had Obelisk the Tormentor. And in this game, you're sort of playing through a facsimile of the story.
Good word.
But you actually could just duel random people, and based on your wins and losses, you would ascend from Slifer Red up to Yellow, up to Blue, or you could go back down if you lost. That was such a cool thing for me, where like, obviously I knew nothing about RPGs as a kid playing this on like I probably played this on Game Boy Advance before I played anything else.
I was picturing this on a Game Boy, so I think I am thinking of the right game.
And a lot of these games I loved. I had, oh gosh, so many Nintendo handhelds. Started with a Game Boy Color, had an Advance SP, a DS, a DSi, the long forgotten DSi. Tanner's digging out something over here. I feel like he's going to pull something surprising out on me. A DSi, a 3DS.
And my Game Boy Color.
Oh, there it is. Mine was yellow.
Wait, hold on.
Oh man, here it comes, people.
Oh, it's not turning on.
Oh no.
Oh no, is the battery dead? Oh no. Be right back.
Okay.
Keep talking.
I'll vamp for you a little bit. I'll just keep talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! So Slifer the Sky Dragon, probably the worst and most useless of the Egyptian god cards. Entirely contingent on the number of cards you had in your hand. The attack and defense were multiplied by 1,000 based on the number of cards you had in your hand. That's why I liked Obelisk. Obelisk, you started with 4,000 attack and defense. It's easy. It overpowers pretty much every other monster. There's no need to do any of this unnecessary calculating. You put him out there, he's going to curb stomp the opponent. Ra, in the anime, way too powerful. OP. Started out in the Orb. They transferred someone else used Ra in the Battle City tournament. And then freaking Merrick just reclaims control of Ra with his mental powers or something. These Millennium items in this show are way too overpowered. Kaiba, Obelisk the Tormentor, that was the way to go. Simple, effective, and Kaiba was just cool. Kaiba is the Vegeta, and Vegeta is the Kaiba of these respective animes, and that's why I love them so much. And now I'm eagerly anticipating the sound, because I've been thinking about it now. I can't even emulate it. It's going to sound so amazing.
Are the batteries in?
I'm hyping it up so much, and we might not even hear it.
It might not even work. We'll see. I just wanted to pull my Game Boy. My Game Boy. It worked.
What cartridge
recently.
in it?
Pokemon Puzzle Challenge, baby. Oh, that's a good one. I didn't even think of that game.
We'll talk a little bit about Pokemon here in just a second, actually.
Yeah, no. Duel Academy is set up basically that's like... Why is this not working? I'd be sad. It's basically Hogwarts for Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yes, 100%.
Which is dope. I remember this pretty vividly. Where's the power switch? Hey! We got there. Hold on, I'm going to run it back one more time.
That sucks, because in my head, I was actually thinking of the advanced sound, which is the...
Yeah. But...
Not as good as my Guitar Hero sound.
One more time. It's so satisfying. Okay, anyway. Thank you for vamping.
Yeah, Duel Academy, great game. Early introduction to some semi-RPG elements. That was cool. Okay. And it was actually, I think, a pretty good game for the time.
Yeah. Right, okay. How many more do you want to do?
I have 3 more, roughly.
Okay, I may do
I'll happily cut one of them.
I was going to say, I may do a lightning round at the end. I have a bunch.
That's fine.
I want to bring up Crash Bash. Crash Bash is my favorite party game of all time. As someone who loves Mario Party, I'm also going to throw in Fusion Frenzy here. I have both of those as separate things, but I can kind of lump them into one. So Crash Bash was the game I remember playing most at my babysitter's, who was my childhood best friend's grandmother. And so he would just bring his PS1. We would play that together. And the game we played most was Crash Bash, which is similar to a Mario Party. There's set up mini games, but not structurally similar to a Mario Party. There's not a board game. The way we played it most was sort of this co-op way of playing it, where it was set up. If you've ever seen the Crash Bandicoot levels, where you go up and down floors. Well, specifically Crash 3 and Crash 2, I think, are both like this, where you have these different doors in front of you. You walk into one, and then that's the level. That's how Crash Bash was set up. So each one was just the mini game of that area. Each area had like 5 mini games, and then a boss, and then the next level had 5 mini games, and then a boss. That's how it was structured. So it was actually like a story mode. But the mini games were so unique and so fun. Now, granted, I'm sure Mario Party has emulated some of these, but Mario Party, their mini games are sort of smaller 30-second experiences, right? Where these were like 2-3 minute experiences, which I enjoyed more of because you could sort of get down early and still come back, or like you could give yourself a fighting chance. Fusion Frenzy is also like this, where it is sort of round-based mini games as opposed to just like little tasks, like Mario Party. I love Mario Party. Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge Mario Party fan. But there's something so special about that style of like you can play a mini game as a story mode. That's so interesting. I loved Crash as a character anyway. All the like different characters in that universe are not nearly to the level of Mario characters, but it was fun enough, and it didn't really matter who you played. But yeah, I just enjoy those mini games a lot, and it's a game I find myself itching for a lot. And Fusion Frenzy is very similar, and I want one of those types of games to come back.
Yeah. Question.
Yeah.
You said you were going to consider doing a lightning round. Is that because you have that many more games than me?
I have a few, but not.
I like the idea.
Okay.
You're going to do a lightning round once I get through a couple more.
All
and
right.
then I have a little thing that I'm going to do.
Okay. Yeah.
So
cool.
We got a little, tag on the end of each of ours. But my next game, one that we also just watched a little bit of footage of earlier,
yeah,
and you also were thrown back a little bit by it, was Arctic Thunder.
Mm-hmm.
Arctic Thunder, a pretty classic arcade game.
Yeah,
anyone who's ever been to it, we were acknowledging that our local bowling alley had a little arcade off to the side. And this is definitely one of those games where you would sit in the snowmobile faux chair and drive around. And I love that it's a snowmobile.
Me too.
Who in their right mind would make a snowmobile game?
I don't know.
Let alone one that was pretty much taking Mario Kart power-up elements and then cranking the speed up to like 14 and letting you like shoot rockets at other people and drive through giant skull faces in the cliffside of a Himalayan mountain.
Was bizarre.
That's pretty much the entire sales pitch for the game.
It's a little warm. I'm gonna go.
It's a little over the top, fast and frenetic at times. Like it doesn't control as smoothly as a game like Mario, but of course it's an arcade game. Like you see these arcade games, they're meant to be just that rush of adrenaline. We were saying that this is definitely this kind of game where you would be playing it and you would feel those cool puffs of like air like hitting your face from the machine. It was just a cool game that I'm nostalgic for because I used to play it. I didn't really play the arcade version very much. I played it on Xbox, the original Xbox, at my friend John's house. He had a huge TV. Like a giant TV.
Nice.
For like 2004 or whatever like year this
probably
was.
Like 32 inches.
No, this was probably like a 70-inch, but probably probably
the
was
box
like
ones?
4 feet deep.
Yeah, that's the first. Yeah, my family had one of those too.
Yeah, it was
Not that
super
big.
fun to play on a big old setup like that. Is it good? Meh.
Yeah,
but it was fun.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I still think Crash Bash is good.
I think Crash Bash is pretty good.
That would be a great, just get drunk with friends and play kind of game.
Absolutely.
Break out a PS1. Because everybody has one of those. All right. My next game is a game that we watched briefly called Virtua Fighter 4. Now, I've made tiny references to this already in the podcast when we're talking about launch games, but I don't know why I own this game. I have no idea why I, as a kid, was into this game. I'd never played a Virtua Fighter game before or since. I don't know if it was just like a cheap buy or something, but another one of those games that we would play at the babysitter's house. It was a fighting game, very similar to like a Mortal Kombat. Stylistically looked similar to Mortal Kombat. Character-wise looked more similar to like a Street Fighter.
Yeah.
So it's kind of somewhere in the middle. I think this is like a Sega property. And some of the just absolute nostalgia when I watched this, because I haven't seen gameplay of this game in a long time. Specifically, there was a level set in the snow where I remember as a kid going like, whoa, the snow moves when they move through it. And like we would load up the level and not even fight each other for a little bit and just like move around in the snow. It kind of had the pseudo 3D thing. So Mortal Kombat is just side on versus side on, where this game is a little bit more like you can move forward and back and the camera kind of adjusts to you. It's a game that has like ring outs and things like that. It's not any different than your standard fighting game. I'm sure there is a reason Virtua Fighter doesn't exist anymore. The game looks kind of clunky and slow based on also watching some Mortal Kombat gameplay from the same era. We'll talk about that in a minute. But that game is probably not a game that holds up well, but introduced along with Mortal Kombat games, my enjoyment of fighting games. Mm-hmm. But I'd say it's probably not great to pick up and play now. Yeah.
And that space was getting just uber crowded.
Yes, for sure.
Your Mortal Kombat, your Street Fighters, your
Tekken.
Tekken.
Yeah.
There's the one that was where they brought over the individual characters for each console. Like Link was on the Nintendo version.
Soul Calibur?
Soul Calibur, yeah. Like all the, cropping up in the late 90s, the space was just very crowded. Yeah, and I've never been a huge fighting game guy, even though I was just talking about Injustice earlier.
Yeah.
My next game is, as I said, I talked a little bit about Pokemon, or I alluded to Pokemon.
Yeah.
And this is maybe among the games that are like actual, what I'll call actual Pokemon games, where you catch Pokemon and you battle and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
This is maybe the most like under the radar one of those.
Okay.
But hit at the perfect right time for me, which is Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. This is sort of the successor to Pokemon Coliseum.
Okay.
Had that same style of battling, but this was much more of a, not open, but sort of a story where there were towns and little areas to explore where you could catch Pokemon. There's a little, and this is, I completely invented this in my head, this memory.
Okay.
There is a seaside town in this game, and I don't know how that town and this song became intertwined in my memory.
Okay.
But for years, I could have sworn that in the game, while you were walking around that town, the song "Got to Get You Into My Life" by Earth, Wind and Fire was playing. Like, I could have sworn that was in the game.
Okay.
It definitely wasn't.
Were your parents just listening to it when you played it or something?
I didn't even know that was an Earth, Wind and Fire song until probably 2 years ago.
I love it.
So I knew that song and thought of it as being from this game more than I thought of it as being an actual popular song.
That's so funny. How did you discover that you did this?
Because I remember the "Got to Get You Into My Life." I remember the song.
Did you hear the song and go,
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I really don't.
Right.
The rhythms must be somewhat similar. We'll look it up after this, and we'll let you decide.
How did adult you discover that you had this memory is what I was asking.
Well, because I had the memory, and then I was like, maybe this is a real song.
Oh.
And I was like,
and so you
I remembered the lyric, and I was like, this is an Earth, Wind, and Fire song?
Why was Earth, Wind, and Fire in Pokemon?
Then I was like, clearly this didn't actually happen.
Yeah, but a Pokemon not one to use licensed music.
No, especially like a 70s disco R&B.
That would have been awesome.
And it fits the vibe of the town perfectly. Which is probably why I invented this thing that never happened in my head. But anyway, there was a Dark Lugia. You had a Espeon and Umbreon. Some of the cool Gen 2 Pokemon.
Yeah.
It was fine.
I will say,
I'm just glad that I didn't even plan on telling that story, but then it came to mind, and it was much better for that.
I will say, I played Pokemon Stadium for the first time recently, and
was it Stadium's the one that this was a sequel to more so? But what's Coliseum? That's a game too.
So Stadium was in 64. Stadium 2 was in 64. Coliseum was GameCube.
Okay,
and then that was GameCube.
Okay.
So I think you're right in saying that.
In the same lineage.
Yeah, but Pokemon Stadium style gameplay was really fun and made me want to explore those kind of games. But I never got into. I didn't own a Nintendo console. I didn't own a GameCube, so I never got into that. I'm sure I would have bought it had I owned one. I don't know why I slowed down so much there. Had I owned one. Okay, I'm gonna give a shout out. How many more games do you have?
Well, I have the games that I want to talk about.
Okay, so I should do my lightning round now.
No, or do one more, then I'll talk about these, and you can do your lightning round, and I'll do my thing.
Right. Okay. So my one more is going to be a game that I think a lot of people know of now, and a lot of people probably knew of then. But it's ATV Off-Road Fury.
I almost put these on my list.
Specifically, the first one. I went back and made sure it was the first one, and how I found it, I did a very you thing, I imagine, or something we both would do, which is I looked up the soundtrack.
Yes.
And I was like, because all these games played
Papa Roach.
Spoon Man was the song, where I was like, I know Spoon Man was on one of these songs, or was on one of these games. So it's ATV Off-Road Fury 1, specifically though, not just the sort of, I can't speak to how good the racing gameplay was.
No.
I didn't really care. The free roam was where it was at.
100%.
Which was basically just almost a tech demo. It was basically just, here's an open map, go drive around. There's some stuff to do every now and then, but I was obsessed with that as a kid. Specifically, just listening to the soundtrack was awesome. And there was a part on the map, and I saw on YouTube someone else had done this. There's a part on the map where you could, if you drove into it was like the edge of the map.
Yeah.
And if you drove into the edge of the map, it would fling you back. Yeah. And that was the thing. We would just do that and die laughing all the time. It was so fun.
I did the same thing. I can hear Getting Away with Murder, the Papa Roach song in my head right now, and just like hitting that wall and just I feel it crashing
up. Didn't think I would sing Getting Away with Murder today. That game, I literally could not tell you anything else about it because all I ever did was free roam, but that part made it fun.
And I'm pretty sure that, because I remember 3 and 4, MX versus ATV Off-Road Fury 3 and 4 were the ones that I probably played the most, and that same mechanic was in there for sure.
So that was probably just the way they solved a map edge, and then people were so into it. They're like, all right, we got to make it a staple.
Yeah. No, that was super. Those games were just fun.
Yeah, they were fun.
They really were. All right. So the games that are the nearest and the dearest to my heart, absolutely, that I've alluded to, and I will talk about these forever, is the Budokai series.
Yes.
Both the original Budokai trilogy and the Budokai Tenkaichi trilogy. Now, here's what I'll say. I think I can pretty empirically say that Dragon Ball Z Budokai, the first one, not very good. Very stripped down Mortal Kombat style. Your moves are limited.
Yeah.
There's no creativity to the story. It's just a ripoff, or it's not a ripoff. It is the
like a direct translation.
The Saiyan Saga, the Frieza Saga, and the Cell Saga.
Yeah.
Budokai 2. I appreciate what they tried to do with the board game setup, and the weird sort of alternate takes on some of these. When you meet some of these characters, it's the same story, but you're meeting characters at different times in different places. But sometimes the fact that I'd have to beat a character like an uber powerful villain 5 times before it actually counted, I was like, I don't like that.
That's not super fun.
But then there was Budokai 3.
Oh.
Budokai 3 actually is pretty well regarded as good.
Okay.
Had like an explorable overworld that you could fly around, collect the Dragon Balls, make wishes, like that sort of thing.
Nice.
The combat was the most refined. Had some interesting additions where like if you clashed into an enemy, like both doing an attack, you would do like a little mini game within a fight where you're like, who could spin like the thing fast, stick fast enough would win like the encounter.
Like a Mario Party game.
It was cell shaded, so the visuals actually looked pretty good and kind of fit the style of the series.
Yeah.
So they definitely got progressively better.
In the Budokai series.
Then you jump to Tenkaichi, and those 3 games run together for me because they're all pretty much the same. They're all that same domed, frenetic, odd perspective that I really love.
It's super unique. You were showing me gameplay earlier.
They all hold that, and it's just to what degree do they add certain characters that aren't in other games and certain storylines that are like very tangential to the main story but that are legit. Like those games I love too because they don't derail the actual story. I don't love the games that take new weird takes on the story. I don't need that.
Right.
I want you to include real things from the anime or the movies that haven't been hit. Like, for example, in Budokai 3 was the first game to introduce Broly. And I love Broly.
Yeah.
Broly, one of the worst backstories of any character, but man, is he cool. Or was cool to me as a kid.
Yeah.
So it was like, I loved it when they just introduced real characters and real stories that I actually hadn't gotten to see before.
Right.
And so that happened intermittently through those 3 games are all pretty good. But I would also say probably at least 2 and 3 are good. 1 was very much a testing ground for that new sort of perspective and fighting style. But yeah, I'll beat the drum for them to bring back a game of that style until they do it, which they never will.
It's a shame.
Not really. They could, but...
can I have another beer, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, lightning round time?
Give it to me.
So, just some other games I put on this list. I'll talk about them as quickly as I can here. Well, I guess we don't need to go super fast, but... So, I wrote down Doodle Jump. Now, granted, this does not fit our time period, but when I was thinking back of like middle school games, I just thought, man, Doodle Jump probably sucks now. But at the time when people first started getting like iPods and iPhones, it was fucking awesome.
God, the iPod Touch.
Yeah, what a time.
Exactly.
So shout out to Doodle Jump. I almost said double tapped. So that's us. The next one is Backyard Basketball.
Was this like the backyard baseball?
Backyard games.
Okay.
Yeah. So specifically the early editions of it. Once they started getting more pseudo-realistic, like once they got started into like the late PS2 era, they sucked. But when I was a kid, when this is totally just rose-tinted glasses here, but when they were a little bit more arcadey, a little more silly, I'm lumping Backyard Football into this as well. They were just super fun. Again, I think if you have any takeaway from this podcast, it's that arcadey sports games need to come back.
Yeah.
In a major way, and I enjoyed the sort of kiddish take. I actually played Backyard Basketball on a video recently, and my whole idea was like, can I Moneyball Backyard Basketball? So all I did was I took, because normally, okay, if you don't know what Backyard Basketball is, it's a cast of kids. The kids are always the same, and then a cast of pros as kids.
Yeah.
So like, it would be like, oh, you have Pedro, you have.
I knew it was Pedro. Isn't Pedro always the one who's like OP?
Yeah, Pedro's really small and really fast in any game. Then you have like, oh gosh, what's her name? Christy Yamaguchi? No, that's the real person.
Yeah.
she's inspired. That's her inspiration because she's like a figure skater.
Okay.
But you have her. You have just all these kid characters, and then the commentators are kids, which they're just adults but pitched up. And then you have like Kid Shaq, Kid Kevin Garnett, Kid Tim Duncan, and so the idea is that you get like, oh, Jocinda was a character that I just remembered. You get all these, like, you have a shooter, you have your big man, you have like maybe your small forward or whatever. It's 3-on-3. But I thought, what if I just get all shooters and I play small ball, and I destroyed the game. I
followed the modern trends of actual basketball.
Yeah, I think it'd be an interesting series to go back and see if that trend works in older basketball games. But yeah, Backyard Basketball, Backyard Football, very fun games. My next in my lightning round here is Civilization 3. I'm glad that we're putting it here because I don't know whether it's good or not. I think it was good at the time. It's hard to tell now because it's so much slower than modern Civ. And I've played so much more of modern Civ than I had of Civ 3. Specifically, what I want to shout out of Civ 3 was my dad would play it, and I would like help with decision making, but he would just be like, oh, maybe we want to put this over here, But the one thing he let me have full control of that was unique to that game was that if you got enough renown amongst your people, you got to build a palace. And as you built your palace, you had a bunch of different options of like what you could do first or what you wanted to focus on or the styles or whatever. Shocker that I'm a graphic designer now, but I loved that. I was like, oh, I want to put this here and all this stuff. So he would let me do that. The rare MMO shout out here. My dad and his group of friends played a lot of WoW. I didn't play a lot of WoW. I would just like help them grind when my dad was at work and his other friends wanted to play. I'd be like, yeah, I'll hop on his account. Which, looking back on it, really funny to me that like his 28-year-old friends were like, yeah, we'll play with a 9-year-old. That's fine. Which in the Twitch era would have been very different. But then there was an MMO that they shifted to. They did Guild Wars later, but in between those two, they played a game called City of Heroes. Do you know anything about this?
No.
This is sort of the precursor to the DC MMO, whatever that's
DC
called.
Universe Online.
Yeah, DCUO. Where it wasn't tied to any franchises, but you could make your own superhero. And the idea was you fought all these supervillains and all that kind of stuff, but it was an MMO. As a kid, I thought that was the coolest
shit. So none of
ever.
the characters in this were actually like licensed characters?
I don't think so. They may have added them later, but I definitely don't think there were at launch.
I would love to see the villains.
Yeah, me too, and see like what they went for. Okay, only a few more now. 2 more, actually. Mortal Kombat Armageddon, I alluded to earlier. The story mode of that game specifically is so weird, but I loved it as a kid. I loved Bo Rai Cho specifically. And I just remember a very vivid memory. I'm going to tell you about this. My dad used to work at a radio station. And on Sundays, it was kind of like the slow day. So he would just like bring me in and we would bring our PlayStation and play Mortal Kombat in between songs. Because all he had to do was like say the breaks.
Yeah.
So he'd be like, all right, now we're moving on to this. And then we'd just go back to playing Mortal Kombat. So I remember playing it in a little small radio station booth. And it's a very specific memory to me. And then lastly, the Rocket Power game on PS2.
Yeah.
Which we watched gameplay of. Looks like any of the other like SpongeBob, THQ games. It's made by THQ.
I referenced Rugrats.
Right, yeah. There have been several like reclones of like a, cartoon turned into video game. You sort of go around, collect everything. There might be a little bit of combat. This game also had skateboarding. We watched it, and it looked bad. It looked very slow. It looked like a fake Tony Hawk, but not in a good way. Not like Disney's Skate Adventure, which is not a game I would shout out, but it's also it's just Tony Hawk reskinned. That game probably wasn't that great, but I called my mom, and I was like, "Hey, Mom, what games do you remember me playing as a kid? I'm doing a thing for the podcast." And she was like, "Okay." She was like, "You had a Rocket Power," or she said Rocket League at first.
Oh,
I was like,
yeah,
I do love Rocket League, but that's newer. And she's like, "Oh, what was that skateboarding cartoon?" I was like, "Oh, Rocket Power." I completely forgot about that. So that's my last honorable mention. That game looks terrible now. So my takeaway is, it's kind of a mixed bag as far as
kids.
Yeah, you as a kid, you're far more likely to find the good in something. I think, especially when you don't know what good games really are.
Very much.
You just play what's put in front of you. But sometimes you hit a legitimately good game, and then other times you just enjoy stuff that other people may not find the enjoyment in.
Yeah, I think Sonic was the best example of that for me. Like, you have to expect a kid is going to like Sonic if that's like one of the first things they're exposed to.
Sure, yeah.
Super fast, royal blue hedgehog.
Yeah.
Anyway, my last thing. I'm going to put out 2 pleas to the audience.
Oh, okay.
And to you as well.
All right.
Because these are games that I'm nostalgic for, and yet I don't remember what they're called or where they came from.
Okay.
So this is more of an archaeological thing that we're doing right now.
All right.
The first one. It was a strategy game, a game or a genre that I barely touch ever.
Yeah, this is a surprise.
But I played it again. My friend John, he was like one of my best friends growing up, and I would go to his house and he had a PC.
Yeah.
And it was sort of like it was one of those things where it was just 1v1 army battling game, but it was like Roman Empire maybe was the setup.
Okay.
And you could summon these like titans that would sort of make your army more powerful. I know this is I think this is a pretty well-known game or franchise, and I just don't know what it is. There's like, I know there are games like Total War Rome is like a thing.
That's the one I was thinking
and
of.
I don't know if this is that.
Yeah, Rome Total War. That's what I was looking up.
What's the release date on that?
September 22nd, 2004. That's a pretty good...
That's possible.
That's
entirely possible.
Oh, that's the second one, sorry.
I remember it being darker than the little pictures that I can see from there. I don't know. Maybe there was a precursor to this.
Okay.
Something like that. But we're in the right ballpark for sure.
Yeah.
The second game, and I don't think I'll ever find this game.
Okay.
I put the easier maybe to find one first. And I don't even have the great description for you here, other than this is what I wrote down. A top-down-ish hack and slash, maybe a bit evil, maybe zombies Dreamcast game.
All right.
All I can vaguely remember is like walking across a rickety like wooden bridge with and that sort of, the perspective is that like semi top down but angular top down.
Okay.
Dungeon crawler kind of perspective.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just like fought zombies.
All right.
Something like that.
Sweet.
It's just weird. Like that Dreamcast, like my brother had a Dreamcast. My brother's 11 years older than me.
Yeah.
So he was playing games that I probably had no business playing, and that might have been one of them. But for whatever reason, that is a very vivid memory in my head, and that weird controller and the discs. I love the way Dreamcast discs looked.
I don't even know if I know
had
what they look like.
The orange swirl that was like the logo for the Dreamcast, I think. I feel like they all had a similar format. I could be wrong, but it was like orange and black.
Okay.
Something like that. I don't know. Maybe that was just a particular game or something.
Oh, okay. I see. I kind of see what you mean.
You know?
Yeah. This one?
Yes,
okay,
100%.
So just the GD-ROM apparently is what it was called. I'm showing it to the
that
video
exact
audience.
Look, man, takes me back to when I was like 5.
Sega Confidential.
But yeah, that's my plea. If anyone knows it, I'll go. I'll dig myself. I really want to know what those games were.
There you go.
Anyway, let's talk. I'm gonna, spin off here.
Okay.
Because we're going on to our recommendations.
Yes.
Games that I said I wouldn't talk about then that I'm going to talk about now and that I've been playing a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm going to appeal to the masses.
Uh-oh.
We're going to speak with our wallets.
Okay.
We want Tony Hawk remastered 3 and 4.
3 and 4.
So play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 remastered because it's fantastic. And it's even better
on PS5.
On the modern consoles. Runs better. It can play at 120 frames per second if you have a monitor or TV capable of that.
Yeah.
I don't at the moment. I'm itching to do that though. But even still, the visuals are sharper, but the gameplay is sharper than it's ever been. One of the sharpest gameplay series ever made. It still holds up in every regard. So you love the soundtrack, you love the gameplay, you love it all. I'm telling you, you do, and you should go buy it if you haven't. Support a good cause.
Dang it! Now I want to play it. My recommend's Moonlighter. I've been playing it a lot, and I know I touched on it in the opening, but it's one of those games that's just always in the back of my brain, and I am like seconds away from just spending an hour playing it. It is one of the preeminent podcast games.
Ooh, yeah.
It's so good.
Okay.
It's so you don't have to hear anything in the game, and it's beautiful for that. You can kind of take your time, and it's just enough of the randomness of the roguelite to keep you going. The upgrades are legitimately fun to get, and there are upgrades like you can get shop upgrades that help you out in ways that other games don't even have that kind of thing. Highly recommend Moonlighter. Would not be surprised if it becomes a PlayStation Now game at some point. But yeah, Moonlighter for the win.
I know I mentioned this briefly, I think it was last week, that I'm tempted to get into the roguelike genre.
Yes.
You being much more versed in this than me.
Yeah.
And I know you said wait for Hades, and Hades is probably a shining example.
Yes.
But since that's not really available to me as of yet.
Yeah.
What would you say is a really good starting point? Maybe this is a whole other can of worms that we can get into later, but...
Sure. No, we can talk about it now. Okay, so I would say Moonlighter is actually pretty good if you're looking for roguelite. So do you know the difference?
I know you explained it earlier. Do it again.
Okay, so roguelite with a T, Lite, is... And I had to learn this when I played Hades because I kept saying the wrong thing. Roguelite with a T... Actually, let me restart. Roguelike with a K, right. Like, is... You're playing and trying to get as far as you can. Like, so Binding of Isaac is the example I'm going to use here. You spawn, you get upgrades over time in your one run, and when you die, you lose everything and you restart from the beginning. Roguelites with a T is in between runs. You can upgrade yourself with gold that you get from your run, right, or things you pick up. So it's a little bit less harsh of a system. So I tend to prefer roguelites to roguelikes, but to each their own. I would say if you want a roguelike, Binding of Isaac is the way to go.
Sure.
That game's awesome, and they're still adding stuff to it. The most recent DLC, I think, is the last DLC. For roguelites, I would recommend Moonlighter. Rogue Legacy is a great game that I really enjoy. Like I said, Hades, if you can play it, which you can play it on Switch. So there's that.
That's true. You're right.
If you really want to try it out.
Oh, but I don't get trophies.
You don't get trophies. Oh. That's what I'm waiting for. I played through Hades so many times, and I still want to play more of it, but I just keep telling myself, it's going to come to PlayStation eventually. Just wait. Just wait.
Yeah.
Those would probably be my three. I know people really like Enter the Gungeon.
I just downloaded Enter the Gungeon, actually.
It never really clicked with me, to be honest. But the nice thing about roguelite is that form isn't genre specific. So, like, Rogue Legacy is sort of a Metroidvania roguelite. Another good one, Dead Cells. Dead Cells is amazing.
Yeah.
In a similar vein. That's actually not a bad one to start with, I don't think. Whereas, like, Moonlighter is more like Link to the Past as a roguelite. Enter the Gungeon is that perspective, but more as a shooter. Yeah, those are probably the few that I would recommend.
Some of them I'm familiar with, but like I know Rogue Legacy is always the one that I think of.
Yeah.
But just never have given it a shot. And I mean,
it's really good. I
enjoy the Metroidvania, but I'm just always like, am I going to feel like I'm sort of wasting my time in a game like this where but I guess that's more of, like you said, a rogue-like thing where it's like,
yeah,
how far can I really push this versus a game where there's actually some progression.
Right.
Maybe I'll dibble dabble, give it a shot.
All right.
But for now, that's going to wrap it up for us. No teases this week because we have no idea what we're going to do next.
Yeah, I was going to say,
we've been building this one up.
Yeah.
But we'll figure out something fun for you.
Yeah.
We always do. But until then, we're tapping out.